Here in America, if you're in the market for a truck that's larger than the average half-ton truck, your choices are only really three: Ford, FCA, and of course, General Motors. So you better believe when a new version of a heavy-duty truck comes out, the industry and consumers take notice because there are very little choices to choose from. Now, the Chevrolet Silverado has always been the #2 selling truck here in America, right behind the Ford F-Series. So when the company introduced an all-new 1500 version last year, you better believe that an all-new version of the heavy-duty truck was just around the corner. And here it is. This is the all-new 2020 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 HD. And as you can see, it rides on the same platform as the 1500 model. It has a new 10-speed automatic transmission for its Duramax diesel V8, and its towing capacity has finally been increased to over 35,000 pounds. So the big question I want to answer, if you guys are in the market for a new heavy-duty truck, how does the all-new 2020 Silverado HD stack up? That's what we're here to find out. So for somebody who is vertically challenged like myself, these heavy-duty trucks are already massive vehicles. And for 2020, Chevrolet actually made this thing about 1.5 inches taller in addition to 10.5 inches longer. As you can see, just standing in front of the damn truck, it comes up to my shoulder length here at 5'7" for the top of the hood. So this is not really for the people that are vertically challenged if you want to work underneath the hood. But let me first talk about the new powertrains, because that is probably the biggest change that Chevrolet made for the 2020 model year. The base engine is now a 6.6 liter gasoline V8. Now that replaces the old 6-liter gas V8. Finally, it's now an aluminum block, an all-aluminum V8. That motor makes 401 horsepower and 464 pound-feet of torque. That's about 40 more horsepower and about 84 more pound-feet of torque versus the previous 6-liter version. Now, if you guys are looking for a diesel, obviously diesels are a very popular choice here in this heavy-duty segment. The 6.6-liter Duramax twin or turbocharged V8 diesel carries over. It still makes 445 horsepower and 910 pound-feet of torque. Now, those numbers are outstanding. However, you should know that, high output versions of the Rams Cummins offer about 1,000 pound-feet of torque, and Ford is now introducing a 6.7 liter Power Stroke, which has 1,050 pound-feet of torque. So GM is kind of behind in terms of the numbers. However, the new story this year is the 10-speed Allison-built transmission, which replaces the old 6-speed automatic. It is a great transmission paired with this powertrain. And of course, with a truck like this, fuel economy is not disclosed because it's not required. And really what you want to know is the towing capacity of these things. This particular one here, the 2500 version, tows about 18,500 pounds. If you guys go for a regular cab dually with rear drive, a 3500 model, that'll tow a maximum of 35,500 pounds. Now that was best in class until Ford introduced their 2020 Super Duty, which now tows 35,700 pounds. So again, more is more, just 200 pounds more. Now, I had trouble finding the actual the weight of this truck. I estimate this truck weighs just under 8,000 pounds, which obviously this is not light. If you guys go for the dually versions, those can probably top out at around 8,500 pounds. Now, moving on to the design of the all-new Silverado HD, this is an area where there's often a lot of criticism in this segment. If you look at the Ford Super Duty, it has a giant equal sign for a grille. As you can see, for the Silverado HD, Chevrolet actually gave it a slightly different look versus the 1500 model, which I really appreciate. And let me be honest, when I first saw this truck, I didn't like the way it looked, but after spending a week with it, I actually think it's grown on me. I really like the design, the overall design of the Silverado HD. The one thing I don't like is the fact that they spell out Chevrolet in the grille. That's basically copying Ford, but the problem is Chevrolet is a much longer word, so it just kind of takes up the entire portion. Thankfully, this particular one that I'm showing you here is the LTZ. It includes all the chrome that you see at the front end, which is a little too much for me. If you guys go for the High Country model, Chevrolet will replace this Chevrolet that's spelled out across the grille and just put the gold bow tie there instead of the actual Chevrolet. Now, as you can see here with the LTZ, you get full LED headlights as standard. The other trims will just have a halogen projector, which looks a little bit cheap. I like the fact that you get LEDs here. You have an LED daytime running light, LED low and high beams, LED fog lights down here, but it just has an incandescent turn signal, and then you have these nicely integrated parking sensors. With the Z71 off-road package that my tester has, it also helps to increase the ground clearance by 1 inch. But overall, let me know what you think of the looks. I am not really the biggest fan of chrome, so I would prefer like a blacked out package where that would black out the chrome as opposed to all the bright work that you see on this particular truck here. Now, looking at the overall dimensions of this thing, obviously this is a big truck. And if you think half-ton trucks like an F-150 or a regular Silverado are big, this is even bigger. Its wheelbase is around 159 inches long, which is about 5 inches longer than the previous generation. And this particular one here is the crew cab with the short bed. So it's got a 6-foot long, 7-inch bed. If you guys want an even longer bed, they also offer a long bed in the crew cab that offers an 8-foot, 2-inch long bed. So this is going to give you the crew cab with the full 8-foot bed, which is something you can't get with the half-ton models. This truck here is overall length is around 250 inches long, which is about 10.5 inches longer than the previous generation, which it itself is already a big truck, but now this is about the same length as most of the competition. Remember, if you guys want the 8-foot bed, it's going to increase the overall length of this truck by about 2 feet. So if you have a small parking area in your house, you're not going to be able to park something like this in your garage. Now, looking at the wheels for this particular one here, this LTZ has these 20-inch polished chrome wheels. It kind of goes with the chrome theme that you get with the front fascia. I'm not the biggest fan, but you can see it's got massive brakes. You're going to need massive brakes when you got something that's nearly 4 tons of weight. The rear suspension here is a solid axle. Chevrolet actually puts an independent front suspension on their HD trucks, which goes against the norm. Most competitors use leaf springs or live axles front and rear. Now, of course, here I want to show you guys one thing here. When you open up the fuel filler here, with the diesel engine, you're going to get an AdBlue DEF fluid addition here, which basically means this is for emissions. That fluid is basically replaced every 10,000 miles. So every time you guys get an oil change, the Chevrolet dealer will add more fluid to it. That's again to comply with the overall emissions of this truck. Now, following me over to the rear of this truck, you can see the design is practically identical to the 1500 models. You kind of have like an LED incandescent combination here for the rear taillights. I'm not thinking it's like the most attractive looking design. It's, Chevrolet is being spelled out here again on the tailgate. This tailgate itself is also an electronic releasing tailgate, which you can open from the hatch or remotely from the interior. You can see you've got more chrome over here. I do like the steps that you get here. So there were steps on the side and at the rear of the vehicle. So again, if you need to get something in the bed for somebody who's vertically challenged like myself, you can easily get into the bed if you need to. Opening up the trunk area here, you can see if you guys are looking for that professional tailgate here, that multi-pro tailgate you get on the GMC Sierra, it is not available on the Silverado because that is unique to the Sierra version. As you can see, my tester here with the 6-foot long, 7-inch bed is very usable. It also includes a spray-in bed liner that my tester already had. And again, if you need more space, you can also opt for that 8-foot bed. This particular one here will haul a maximum of 3,500 pounds in the actual truck bed. If you guys go for the dually versions, that will roughly double the numbers to over 7,400 pounds. So the exterior design of the new Silverado HD may be more of an acquired taste, but let's hop into the interior of this LTZ model and go over some of the changes Chevy has made for this new heavy-duty version. First thing I want to show you guys, here's the key fob for the vehicle. You can see it's basically the same key fob that I showed you guys on a regular Silverado. You can also remotely open the tailgate from here. You can also activate the remote start. To do that, just push the lock button here, push and hold that button there. And you can hear the truck starts right up for you. It's a very quiet noise too, especially for a big 6.6 liter diesel. To shut the engine off, just push and hold that button again. That shuts the engine off for you. Now, as you approach the door handle of the new Silverado HD, you can see just like the half-ton model, there's a silver button here. If you touch that button, it'll lock and unlock the doors. Chevy doesn't do a sensor on the back of the door handle like some competitors do. Now, my tester here with the gray leather interior, this is the LTZ trim, so it's not fully the highest trim level. There's also a high country above this. It offers like a brown leather. I have to admit, for a truck that's as expensive as this truck is, the interior certainly looks very much a little bit like a letdown. In fact, it's a direct carbon copy of the half-ton model, which it itself doesn't look all that different from the previous generation. The seats are definitely one of the most plain-looking seats that I've seen in a high trim level truck. I believe the high country will spell out in an embroidered part of the headrest, high country trim. These seats themselves are heated and cooled, which are nice. They offer a 2-person memory, which is good, and like 12 different ways of adjustability. The leather also doesn't really feel like leather. It just feels more like a vinyl, a synthetic leather trim. And overall, this interior may very well go down as probably one of the worst interiors in the modern truck segment. I mean, it's not horrible, but when you compare it to the new Ram or even the Super Duties, this interior is very much kind of a lazy effort on Chevrolet's part. Now, thankfully, in terms of the ergonomics, it's fine. There's a nice little running board here. There's a nice grab handle here to help short people like myself get into this truck. And when you finally hoist yourself in, you can see this definitely gives you the kind of commanding view of the road that Super Duty or heavy duty truck owners really expect. And then when you shut the door, It sounds pretty solid, so that's definitely a nice, impression of quality. But getting inside this vehicle and looking at everything else, I must say I'm super disappointed with how small that screen looks. Let me first turn the truck on. The gauges have that typical GM sweep. They look fine. That bong, really wish GM would also retire that bong. It's definitely just ready to be replaced with something a little bit more refined sounding. There's kind of like a 7-inch helper screen over there in between the two conventional dials. This is the 8-inch Chevrolet MyLink infotainment system that includes Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. It also has wireless phone charging. It has built-in GPS on this trim, which is nice. But I mean, look at this screen here in relation to the size of the dash. It looks very, very tiny compared to the 12-inch display that you get in the Ram. For example, Ford also has a smaller 8-inch display as well, but I imagine, they're going to eventually improve that. I mean, in terms of the materials, there's some faux stitching here throughout the dash, which looks nice at first. When you start touching it, it says soft touch injection molded plastic, which is fine. There's just a lot of gaps in here. I'm seeing a lot of uneven panel gaps. The design also just looks very much like I've seen it before. The door panels here are also soft touch materials. It's hard touch plastic over here, slightly padded over here with some of that leather material that's on the seats. The windows are one touch up and down. For just the front windows, you can also extend the mirrors out if you'd like, because this truck has the tow mirrors, which is nice. Over here is your controller for your 4-wheel drive system. Chevrolet added an auto function. You can adjust your trailer brake controller over there. Your headlight controls are over here. You can adjust the head-up display over here, which this 15-inch heads-up display does offer a good amount of information. You can also adjust to see what you'd like it to show there, or you can just turn it off entirely. So it's nice that Chevrolet includes that. The steering wheel here is a manual tilt and telescoping. It does offer a good amount of adjustability, although I think the Super Duties offer a power tilt telescoping steering wheel. Maybe the Ram does too. I'll have to double check that. Very traditional truck shifter here for the 10-speed automatic transmission. When you put the vehicle in reverse, you can see full 360 camera, and I will applaud Chevy for putting a much higher resolution camera in these newer trucks. Do love this. You can also just go look at the truck from several different views. If you guys are option for that 15-angle tow package, which I've shown you on the GMC Sierra trucks, you can also basically have that transparent trailer view. You can see exactly right through the trailer. So this is all very good with helping you park a vehicle like this. This is a very big truck, and you can see there's where you can see exactly what's in the bed. This particular one does have the option. It's very nice. I think the camera quality is fantastic in this truck, so I have to give Chevrolet credit for doing a really excellent backup camera or camera system in this vehicle. You can see here's with the CarPlay. When it has enabled, the screen itself just looks a little grainy. It's not even completely black in the actual background of the screen. Again, it just looks like it's an old, high definition display, even though it is a high definition display. It looks much better when you're actually over here. You can see there's part of your trailering apps, which you can go, if you guys plan to tow heavy loads with this vehicle, you can access the cameras over there. Wireless hotspot, of course, is included. When you go to the audio system, you can see all your different presets are also at the top here, which is fairly easy to use. The entire MyLink infotainment system is nice to use. I just think it's time for Chevrolet or GM to beef up the screen size. That would be very nice to have. Over here you can see you've got big knobs, traditional knobs here for your tuning, your volume, dual zone climate control, which is nice. Your diesel exhaust brake switches over here, along with your lane departure alert. You can also turn or open the electronic truck release bed there. You've got heated and cooled seats, which is nice. So again, features I typically expect are here, which is nice. Downhill assist control. You've got a traditional power outlet there. You can also adjust your gain and output there for your trailer brake controller. Traditional 12-volt over there. Your wireless phone charging pad is over here. A lot of storage here. You can see big cup holders, big center console over here. Lots of storage underneath there. You have another USB, USB-C. So there's a plentiful amount of USB charging in this truck. I even really like the shelf that Chevrolet puts over here. And then over here you can see it's got two glove boxes, which are both a little bit on the small side. They're not lined with felt, but this bottom portion here is damped slightly, so very good storage here. There's some silver painted plastic trim over here, and then above me, my tester's missing a sunroof for this kind of amount of money, so it's a little disappointing. And then the seats, they're definitely great for people who have a wide frame. I actually think they're pretty comfortable. They just don't look very impressive. The heated and cooled function also works well. My truck also has a Bose audio system, which sounds pretty good. I wouldn't say it's as good as the Harman Kardon you might find in the Ram, or Ford also does a B&O system. So overall, the interior, definitely the biggest letdown of this new Super Duty, but if that's not a problem for you, if you prefer your truck to be a little more utilitarian, this is going to be just fine for you, but just know that some competitors offer more luxury, more impressive looking tech features as well. Now, Chevrolet continues to offer the HD in 3 different cab styles. This obviously is the one that you want if you plan on actually putting people in the back seat, because with that stretch in wheelbase this year, Chevrolet was able to add 3 more inches of legroom. Now, before I actually get into the back seat, you still get the usual versatilities with a truck like this. If you want, you can push this seat up. It'll reveal some storage underneath here, although there is no lockable storage. Some competitors do offer a little bit more lockable storage or a flat load floor over here, so keep that in mind if you guys are looking for something like that. But getting back here, you can see, I mean, even if you have tall friends or fat friends, you could easily fit 3 people across over here. I mean, because this truck is so wide, when they first shut the door, there is so much space over here to stretch out. Now, Chevrolet says you got 43 inches of legroom back here. That's 3 inches more than the previous generation, about 3 inches more than what you get in most of the competition here. You can see the floor is basically completely flat, so 3 people across would be really comfortable. You have your own set of rear seat air vents, 2 USB ports, and you have 3-level heated rear seats. Cup holders here, and if you fold down this armrest over here, you can see 2 more cup holders here. So again, if you want to use this as a family vehicle, this has one of the most rear legroom in the class. Even big sedans like a Mercedes-Benz S-Class does not have quite as much legroom as something like this. Now, even though I haven't had a chance to drive the all-new Silverado HD, I'd had plenty of time when I was at the media drive for the Sierra HD, and as you guys know, these 2 trucks share the same platform. They just have slightly different styling, although I will admit that GM was a little bit lazy when it comes to differentiating these trucks on the interior. They just look vastly identical aside from just the Chevrolet badge and the steering wheel of the Silverado and the GMC badge. But setting off in the all-new Silverado HD, the one thing that will impress you immediately when you get behind the wheel of this truck is just how refined it is. For a 6.6 liter turbo diesel V8, it's a very quiet engine, which is a good thing and maybe a bad thing for some traditionalists. I know some people who drive the Cummins diesels really like how loud those engines are, and this engine definitely has some of the diesel clatter, but you're also going to appreciate the refinement that it comes with. Now, the one thing that also really impresses me is when you come to a stop and put your foot down here, leave it in 4x4 auto, this thing is fast. I mean, there was a time where diesel trucks just 10 years ago would take like 10 seconds to get to 60, even with their big engines and like 700 foot-pounds of torque. This thing will easily get to 60 in around 6.9 seconds. And it just has so much torque everywhere. This thing just leaps off the line, and you know, it makes the truck feel a lot more agile and smaller than it is. And this thing is not small. I mean, at 250 inches long, this is one of the longest vehicles I've ever had for testing for a week, and it weighs over 7,000 pounds. So yeah, you feel the weight and the size everywhere. I mean, on this curvy, small 2-lane road, which is not ideal for this truck, she's a big girl. She takes up the entire lane, which takes some getting used to when you're hustling this thing. But a lot of people also love that about these big trucks, because you just feel like you're king of the road. You sit up very high. You have this big commanding, hood that you look over, and you just feel like you're invincible. Like if you get into an accident, this thing is so big. There's so much crash protection. There's just so much with the laws of physics here that's coming into play. You just feel safe and secure while you're driving this thing. Now, handling is always, something I like to test, but with these big trucks, they're not really meant to go handling. Obviously, they have a recirculating ball type power steering. You got a live axle at the rear, independent front suspension, which is slightly different than some of the competition. And it's just a very refined truck. I think that Chevrolet has basically put all their engineering funds into making sure the engine and powertrain are sound, which they are, especially when you have this 10-speed Allison transmission. It's one of the best transmissions I've sampled in a big heavy-duty truck. Just really quick, smooth, snappy shifts. It's always putting the engine right in the meat of the power band. It never gets confused, even when I put my foot down. This diesel engine is very much worth the $10,000 upcharge over the gas 6.6. I drove that when I was at the GMC media drive. Wasn't terribly impressed with the 6.6 liter gas V8, even though it finally replaced the old 6 liter engine. I think that if you are going to buy this truck, you just need to go for the diesel. Now, in terms of the visibility, it's also relatively okay to see out of this thing. You do have to get used to the big hood. The big tow mirrors also really help with seeing what's around your blind spot. Love all the cameras and whatnot. The view out of the back is, typical. And if you'd like, you can also put in that rear view camera mirror option where, it shows you exactly what's behind you. So this is definitely one of the easier, more refined trucks to drive. And if you can get past the horribly boring interior, which has just average materials, there is a very likable truck underneath, but what I haven't driven is the new Ram with its 6.7 liter Cummins inline six, although this is quicker to 60 by about a second and a half. And of course, there's a new Super Duty that hasn't been, that people haven't driven yet, that isn't quite on sale yet. It now has over 1,000 pound-feet of torque, while this only has 910. But I will say that with that snappy 10-speed, horsepower, numbers, torque, that's just all about paper, or about bragging rights on paper. It's all about how something feels when you're driving it. And the Silverado HD definitely feels good. I mean, look at that. Just put your foot down there. It just pushes you right back in the seat. Plenty of power. Like, I was seriously racing people in their GTIs and V6 Camrys in this thing, and everybody would always be so surprised at how fast this thing would get away from the lights. And when you have it with that new automatic four-wheel drive system, there's no wheel spin whatsoever. It's just torque for days, smoothness for days, refinement for days. So these big trucks, even though they're big, they've gotten a lot easier to drive, a lot more refined, which is probably why a lot of people are buying these things and not necessarily needing something that can tow as much as these things can tow. Because, I mean, obviously, you can haul around, 3,500 pounds of payload in the bed. On this particular one, it'll tow up to 18,000 pounds without breaking a sweat. And I had a chance to tow with this GMC version, a 14,000 pound, trailer or camper, and it was just, without breaking a sweat. So obviously, this is a really refined truck. Love the acceleration. The seats are comfortable. The noise is good. It's quietly refined. There's very little to complain about in here when you start driving the thing. So GMC or Chevrolet, GM in general did a great job with just the overall driving dynamics and feel of this thing doing truck things. But there's very little innovation here, and that's kind of where I'm going to save my criticism for the Silverado HD. So when Chevrolet first dropped off the 2500 Silverado at my house, this was quite easily the biggest press car that I've ever had. At over 250 inches long, this is something that's obviously not going to fit into a small garage, or if you live in the city, you're not going to want something like this. But after spending a week with the all-new Silverado HD, the 2500 model, even though this car has a really crappy interior that just, honestly, I think Chevrolet is going to do an emergency refresh on it, it has the good amount of tech that you want, but in terms of luxury features, it's lacking. Really where this truck excels for me is in the driving experience. Its powertrain is excellent. I love the 10-speed automatic, love the Duramax diesel. I love that this truck can get to 60 in 6.5 seconds unloaded, which is just unheard of. There are times, 10 years ago, if you drove a full-size truck like this with a diesel, they took at least 10, 11 seconds to get to 60. So performance has really improved. Chevrolet also improved the ride and handling of this truck. Obviously, it's not going to handle like a sports car, but it has a comfortable ride, whether it's loaded or unloaded. It has an incredibly roomy interior, and the design continues to grow on me. I didn't really like the truck at first, but if you guys get the right packages, I would probably skip the LTZ's chrome package that you get for this particular one. The Cajun red does look nice. It really makes for a really great truck that if you actually need to do truck things, this is something that Chevrolet has worked extensively on, and with their tow package that they offer with the 15 different camera views, if you regularly are towing something large, this is really something that only Chevrolet or only GM offers in the industry. Now, with all that said, what's it going to cost to put a new Silverado HD in your driveway? Well, actually, Chevrolet made this truck about $3,000 less expensive versus the 2019 model, but that's only because they got rid of the regular cab version in 2019. At a starting price of around $34,100, this is right around what most of the other trucks in the segment are going to offer. This particular one here, because it's the crew cab, the LTZ, starts at around $53,000. So these trucks are not cheap. Add in all the options that my tester has. The diesel engine upgrade is the most expensive at about $10,000 extra. However, with the diesel, that's really the powertrain you want, because when I drove the base V8 when I was at the Sierra program, I wasn't really happy with the base engine. You also get that old 6-speed automatic as opposed to the 10-speed. Surprisingly, fuel economy was really good with this truck. I got about 20 mpg on a long highway drive, and in mixed driving, I got around 15 mpg. Even though that isn't really excellent if you just look at numbers, this actually got better mpg versus a Toyota Tundra that I also had a couple months ago. So for something that weighs this much, for how big it is, it gets really good mpg. Add in all the other options that my tester has: $7,800 for the LTZ Premium package, $1,000 for the Z71 off-road package, which increases the ground clearance to just under 11 inches. And all in, this truck stickers for about $73,265, which is right in line with most of the competition, but that's where I have a problem with the interior of this truck. For over 70 grand, I expected the interior to look a lot nicer, to have nicer materials. So hopefully GM, Chevrolet, GMC decides to do an emergency refresh on this truck, because they actually have shown us the interior of the new Suburban and Tahoe, which has a much nicer looking cabin. So I don't be surprised to see Chevrolet kind of retrofit that interior, maybe for the 2022 model year. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2020 Chevrolet Silverado HD. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook. And as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.